The file landed on my desk with a thud, thick with dust and faded ink. "Cold case," my captain grunted. 30 years old. A Jane Doe. "Give it a look, Colber. Fresh eyes and all that." I opened the folder, and the first thing I saw wasn't a grainy crime scene photo, but a child's drawing. Crayon on construction paper, faded but still vibrant. A smiling stick figure with bright yellow hair, holding hands with another, smaller stick figure. A big, happy sun shone in the corner. Below it, in shaky, childlike letters, was a name. Mommy and Me. It was the only personal item found with the body. For 3 decades, this drawing was just another piece of forgotten evidence. The case was a ghost, a whisper in the precinct. Jane Doe found in the woods just outside of town. No ID, no witnesses, no leads. The original investigators did everything by the book, but the trail went cold faster than a winter night. They'd run her prints, checked dental records, canvassed for missing persons reports for hundreds of miles. Nothing. It was like she'd appeared out of thin air, only to vanish forever. The file was a chronicle of dead ends. 30 years of silence. But as I stared at that simple drawing, I felt a flicker of something. Not hope exactly. More like a question. This child, whoever they were, had to be out there somewhere. Now, they'd be an adult, probably in their late 30s. This drawing wasn't just a piece of paper, it was a memory. And memories, unlike evidence, don't degrade, they just get buried. My first few weeks were a grind, re-interviewing retired detectives, rereading brittle witness statements. They all told the same story. A quiet town, a shocking discovery, and then nothing. The original file mentioned a small silver locket found near the body, but it was empty. No photo, no inscription, just another dead end. I felt like I was chasing echoes. The department was ready to shelve the case again, move on to something with a chance of being solved, but I couldn't let go of that drawing. It felt like a promise. The child in that picture deserved to know what happened to their mommy. I decided to take a different approach. Forget the physical evidence for a moment. I needed to find the artist. In the early 90s, forensic science wasn't what it is today, but we had one thing they didn't: the internet and social media. I took a high-resolution photo of the drawing and, after getting the green light from the brass, posted it on the department's official social media pages. The caption was simple: "Do you recognize this drawing? We believe it was drawn by a child in the early 1990s. It could be the key to solving a 30-year-old mystery." I didn't mention the murder. I just put it out there, a message in a bottle cast into the vast ocean of the internet. The post went viral. It was shared thousands, then tens of thousands of times. News outlets picked it up. The story of the cold case drawing was everywhere. We were inundated with calls and emails. Most were well-intentioned but useless. People saying it looked like something their cousin drew, or a picture they saw in a thrift store. It was overwhelming. My team and I worked around the clock, sifting through the noise, looking for that one signal. Days turned into weeks. The initial surge of interest began to fade, and I started to think this too was a dead end. Maybe the child had forgotten, or worse. Then one Tuesday afternoon, an email came in. The subject line was just 2 words: "My drawing." My heart hammered against my ribs. The email was from a woman named Sarah. She said she was 35 and lived a few states over. She wrote, "I can't be sure, but that drawing, it looks exactly like one I did for my mother when I was 5. We were living in a small town then. I remember that yellow construction paper. I remember drawing her with hair like the sun because she was my sunshine." She said her mother, Elena, had disappeared when she was a little girl. Her father told her that her mom had left them, that she just ran away one day and never came back. He moved them away shortly after, and they never spoke of her again. I called Sarah immediately. Her voice was trembling. I asked her about the town. The name she gave me matched the location where our Jane Doe was found. I asked if her mother had any distinguishing features. "She had a small scar above her right eyebrow," Sarah said, her voice catching. "From a fall, when she was a kid." I flipped through the original autopsy report, my hands shaking now. There it was, in faded type. Small, crescent-shaped scar noted above the right orbit. It was her. After 30 years, Jane Doe had a name: Eleanor. Sarah's father, a man named Richard, still lived in the same house he'd moved them to all those years ago. He was a pillar of his new community, a retired schoolteacher. When we brought him in for questioning, he was calm, collected. He stuck to his story. Eleanor was unstable, she ran off, and he never heard from her again. He expressed shock that she had been found, that she was gone all this time. He was a good liar. But there was something in his eyes, a flicker of something cold when I mentioned the drawing. He said he didn't remember it. That's when I knew he was involved. We needed more than a hunch. We got a warrant to search his house. It was meticulous, almost sterile. Richard was a man who liked control. We spent hours turning the place upside down, finding nothing. As the team was packing up, ready to leave, I took one last walk through. I ended up in the garage. There was an old dusty workbench in the corner. Underneath it, tucked away behind some old paint cans, was a small metal tackle box. It was locked. When we pried it open, my breath caught in my throat. Inside, nestled on a bed of faded velvet, was a single small photograph. A woman with bright blonde hair and a small scar above her right eyebrow, smiling at the camera. Elena. And tucked behind the photo was the other half of the silver locket we'd found at the scene 30 years ago. Richard's story crumbled. Faced with the locket and the photo he'd kept hidden for 3 decades, he confessed. It wasn't some grand, premeditated evil. It was a domestic dispute that had spiraled out of control. An argument about money, a shove, a fall. He panicked. Instead of calling for help, he made a choice that would haunt 3 decades. He drove her out to the woods, thinking no one would ever find her. He took his daughter and ran, building a new life on a foundation of lies. He never imagined that a simple child's drawing, a token of love left in his wife's pocket, would be his undoing. When I told Sarah, there weren't many words, just quiet tears. Tears of grief for the mother she'd lost, and tears of relief for the truth she'd finally found. The drawing that had started it all now sat on her mantelpiece, a memory of a mother's love that time could not erase. It solved a murder, yes, but it also gave a daughter back her mother's story. Sometimes in this line of work, the smallest clues speak the loudest, and a child's love, as it turns out, is a truth that never goes cold. Thanks for joining me on this case. Every piece of evidence tells a story, and I've got plenty more to share. Make sure to follow and subscribe so you don't miss the next investigation. Stay safe out there.